Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dad, and you're listening to another episode of Dad and Daughter Reads, a book club podcast. Today, we're starting our journey through Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, covering pages 1 through 120. If you're a fan of stories that are a little dark or a little strange, you're in the right place. And of course, riding shotgun with me, as always, is my co-host, Miranda, who spent some of the last 2 weeks in the Dominican Republic. How was your trip, Miranda?
Hello. My trip was really good. I went for my birthday. I turned 29 and just stayed on a resort. It was really nice. Got to go to the beach every day and hang out at the pool every day. Went on a boat one day. That was really fun. Saw some stingrays and some nurse sharks and some fish. Yeah, honestly, it was very relaxing. Just a super relaxing week for my birthday. That was 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah. I got back last week. I got back last Monday. And then just kind of reacclimating back to normal life. The weather is much better now here in the city, which is awesome. So, because I truly was like, if we land and it's 30 degrees and cold, I'm not getting off the plane. But it wasn't. Fortunately, it's been a nice high 60s, 70s, and sunny the past week. And then one of my really good friends' birthdays was also yesterday, the one who I went on the trip with, actually. So spent some time celebrating her birthday yesterday. And that's been my last 2 weeks. While I was in the Dominican, I started the second Broken Earth book, Obelisk Gate, yes. And I'm a good chunk into it by now. Yeah, I'm like 3/4 done with it now. And I really like it. I think I like it better than the first one.
Really?
I think so. I feel like it's there now that there's like a solid, now that we know all the backstory we need to know, I like now all of the pacing moving forward and finding out what the issue is. What she's trying to do and what I still feel like it still feels like a lot of information and not a whole lot of doing, but more doing than the first one. Yeah. And I'm excited to see where it goes and all the lore with the Stone Eaters and everything is cool. And her daughter, I have theories about things with her daughter and everything. So I'm excited. I like it a lot.
Okay.
I was really enjoying reading it. It's well loved now because I took it to the beach, but I was really enjoying reading it at the beach. So yeah, but that's really it other than Buffalo Hunter Hunter. How are your past couple weeks? What are you reading?
So my past couple of weeks have been pretty normal. Do a whole lot outside of the normal things I do. Reading wise, let's see. Well, first I did get all the way into, and I'm almost caught up with The Righteous Gemstones up to season 4, which I know you said you stopped at season 3. Season 4 is fucking just as wild. But I will say the first episode of season 4 was really cool. So it's like a flashback, but it's different than the normal flashback. So in fact, this first episode has nobody in it that is normally in the show because it flashes all the way back to the 1860s. and the first gemstone, how he became a man of God, pretty much, which he pretty much dumb lucked his way into. And that person is played by Bradley Cooper. And so it's all like this whole Civil War thing going on because he gets recruited into a Civil War regiment for the South, for the Confederate side.
Right.
And he's really not a man of God. And they think he is a preacher, and that's why they're bringing him along as the chaplain. And so it's really good. So, because it's so different than all the other episodes, but it gives you, some good backstory on the Gemstone family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool. And Bradley Cooper does a good job.
Yeah, that does sound funny. All right. I'll get back into it eventually. I just needed a break.
Yeah. Well, after that, it goes back to being its normal wild self.
Sure. Yeah, I just needed a break of all the shenanigans. It was just too much. And then I couldn't keep up because season 3 started with the sister or something.
Yeah.
With the monster trucks.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's when I was like,
With
I
with
gotta take
with
it
his
back.
sister, Eli's sister, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like
Yeah.
there's that weird like what are they? Oh, they're like what are they called? Doomsday people or
Yeah, like
whatever.
preppers and
Yeah,
stuff.
and I was
Yeah.
like, all right, it's too much. I gotta take a break. I gotta take a break. So I'll get back into it once I've cleared my head
Yeah.
and I
And that
can like
that first episode
focus
will help
better.
too, kinda, because it's not as I mean, it's crazy, but it's not as wild
Yeah,
as the shenanigans the 3 idiots get into.
yeah, that does sound good.
But yeah, I was trying to get caught up so I can get that over with because Andor, the Star Wars show started last week and they're dropping 3 episodes every week for 4 weeks. It's a 12 episode thing and I got to read that book which I just got from the library. So I finished up book 3 of The Expanse and the short story because the way I have it set up is I'll read a book and then a short story. So I'm going to have to take a break from that just to read Mask of Fear, which is the Star Wars book that has Mon Mothma in it, because I want to read that before I start watching Andor. But Andor's already started, so I got to hurry up because I think at this point, Mon Mothma, who's in that Andor series, she's one of the main characters, is probably becoming my favorite Star Wars character, which is weird because she's not like a Jedi or anything. She's a senator in the Imperial Senate. She was a senator before in the Republic Senate, but now in the Imperial Senate. But apparently, in one of these first 3 episodes, she has a crashing out episode and she just starts dancing all crazy, which a lot of people were talking about. So yeah, I'm going to be getting into that as soon as I finish this book. It's a short book, so probably a few nights I'll be done with it. Didn't do a lot of reading. Like I said, I finished Expanse number 3 and the short story. Spent a lot of time doing other things like watching Righteous Gemstones and some other things. That's what I've been up to and what I've been reading.
Nice.
All right, so there is no social media book buzz this week. Honestly, I have not been on social media that much, and I'm pretty much sick of it anyway.
Yeah, I don't get much of the book drama anyway.
Yeah, and now that when I get on there, it's like my algorithm has changed, and I'm hardly even getting that many book talk videos. I'm getting a bunch of dang political crap.
Mm.
But anyway, no social media book buzz, so we're going to get right into Buffalo Hunter x Hunter. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is the structure of the book. What do you think about the structure of the book? How it's kind of written in diary type format with dates. And the one thing I don't like is it doesn't have any chapter numbers, which is why we are going by page numbers to get through this, which I don't like at all.
Okay.
I don't like books without chapter numbers. The chapters must be numbered.
Okay.
Dang it.
All right. Well, yeah,
So
I
that's
guess because
one thing I don't like.
I guess because it's meant to be journal entries, diary
Right.
entries. Yeah.
It's like a journal diary entries, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the way that's set up?
I actually really like it.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool, different, interesting way. I mean, it just feels like now there's a lot of stories within stories, which is cool to me because, you have the beginning of it and it's, this girl who's doing her thesis and she finds the diary and then she's like, okay, and then like starts reading it. And then that's what we're reading. But then within the diary entries, you're getting the story of Goodstab as a confession. I think that's really cool and interesting because it's just different from, the other books we've been reading and the way other books are written. So I like it. I think it's cool. I don't mind not having chapter numbers. That doesn't bother me.
I do like the way it is too. The only thing that bothers me is the chapter numbers, but that's just me. That's a me thing.
Sure.
It's not that big of a deal. Just it does make it harder for us to track it here
Sure.
instead of page number, especially if there's a lot of times if someone has a hardcover versus paperback, it's not always the same page numbers.
No, I think it's a really cool way to tell a story, though.
Yeah, it is.
Diary entry, and
I agree.
within that, it's somebody else's confessional.
Right.
Is cool. And then outside of that, it's this other girl reading it, So you got there's a lot of layers there, which I like a lot.
Yeah. In this first section, we only get one part of her reading it, but we'll get to that here, which we could just jump into right now. Actually, chapter 1. So chapter 1, we start off in 2012 where we meet Etsy Buchanan. Bucharn. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Bucharn, probably.
Bucharn, yeah. A professor of communication and journalism at the University of Wyoming. Her great-great-great-grandfather, Arthur Bucharn, his journal was recently found and is being held by the Special Collections Library of the University of Montana State. So the first journal entry of that journal is March 26th, 1912. And this section here just tells us that Arthur is a Lutheran pastor in Miles City, Montana. There's been some killings of men, and these men have been drained of their blood and skinned. And Etsy is trying to solve the mystery of what happened to Arthur in 1912. He had a series of fantastical conversations with an Indian man known as the Full Blood. And this is basically the whole premise of the book, right? Is the Full Blood Indian man is giving his confessional to Arthur throughout this journal. And Arthur's writing it down in his journal.
Yeah, and like she's trying to figure out what happened to Arthur because she doesn't know what happened. He's her great whatever grandfather.
Right. I think, does he end up disappearing or something?
Yeah, he ends up disappearing, I think.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to figure out what happened to him, and whilst also doing this like thesis she has to do for her job. So she's like killing two birds with one stone type of deal to keep her job. Yeah, which is like, and it's a pretty short chapter too. We really don't get too much information about her or everything. Kind of just like jumps right into trying to figure out
journal,
like what happened. But there is some cool stuff that happens. I think towards the end of the chapter, she goes home to really like dive into it, and she's talking about her cat, and then there's a prairie dog in her house who like busts into her house, and she's a little scared of the prairie dog, and it seems like it's going to attack her, but then it doesn't, and then it just disappears. And
I thought that had something to do with her cat bringing it in.
No, the cat didn't bring in the prairie dog. The prairie dog just came in because the cat wasn't there yet. The cat came in after the prairie dog. So the prairie dog just like was in the house. The cat brings her like little mice and stuff, like dead mice as presents.
And that's why I thought, I guess,
or maybe
the cat brought the prairie dog.
No, because I think when the prairie dog was there, she didn't know where the cat was. But also prairie dogs are pretty big, so I don't think the cat would like bring in the prairie dog. Or maybe it did if it's still alive. Maybe you are right. Anyway, the prairie dog's in the house. I have some theories about the prairie dog.
Okay, what are those?
I don't know if I want to get into them right now because we talked about the rest of the book. But I just feel like we need to keep the prairie dog in mind. Because like, why else would the prairie dog be there? And then also there's just so much talk about animals throughout the book. And in Native American culture, animals are very important in general. And this prairie dog seemed to know what was going on. So I have some theories about the prairie dog. And possibly the cat too. I have some theories about the cat also.
Okay. All right.
So, which like we at the end I can get into, but I just feel like we need to consider the prairie dog. For now, let's consider the prairie dog. And then I also like, because then after that she's a little spooked and the cat comes back in and he's like covered in antifreeze and she has to clean him and she like hears something behind her. And I really liked this quote. It says, she said, "You can't look around every time you think you're not alone. Once you start, you never stop." I thought that was spooky.
Yeah.
Like that's such a good like spooky quote. And then that made me think like, oh, like, wow, ooh, this is going to be, I mean, I already knew it was going to be a spooky-ish book, but I thought that was a good setup because I was like at the very, very end. Then she also kind of alluded to it being like her great-great-grandfather, like in spirit coming to her too. So a little spooky. And I think we need to pay attention to the prairie dog.
Okay. There are definitely a lot of animals.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We will keep the prairie dog in mind as we move along into chapter 2. Chapter 2. So a lot of these chapters, depending on what they're talking about, have the exact same title, just with a different date. Mm-hmm. So this one is titled The Absolution of 3 Persons, March 31st, 1912. So an Indian man has been attending Arthur's Sunday sermon, sitting in the back row. They go through they end up talking to each other after the sermon, and they go through some naming games. With the Indian man settling on being called Good Stab, and he calls Arthur 3 Persons, which is in reference to the 3
Holy Trinity.
God, yeah, the Holy Trinity. And Goodstab asks if he could confess to Arthur, and Arthur says he will listen with a good heart.
Yeah, because nobody knows what Arthur is in terms of like what kind of like is he father, pastor? Because even Goodstab comes in and is like, "Is there not a box we go sit in?" And he's like, "No, I'm a Lutheran church, so there's no box." Like nobody. I think it's funny that like nobody knows what to call him because they all call him different things, and you know, like the whole town and stuff. So nobody. He just kind of goes with it. So he's like, I guess I'll listen to you. Arthur's such an interesting character too, because he's like this pastor, but then I don't know, sometimes his inner dialogue is interesting. He seems like a weird man. And then he's just kind of like, I guess, like, yeah, this man needs to say something, and I am a person of God. I will listen.
I guess I have to.
Yeah, I guess it's my job. That's how he operates.
Well, I think that may be part of because in that religion, I think, I'm not really that familiar with Lutheran, but like, aren't Catholics the only one where you have to actually do a confession where you have to confess your sins to someone, to a priest, where every other religion, every other Christian sect of religion is more, you do that on your own.
Right. Which, like, I mean, in every sect, part of the job of whoever is in charge of the congregation is there to, like, listen to you if you need to talk. Like, there's supposed to be spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
So this isn't totally unheard of.
Right.
But I think he's also just used to being there and not everybody being super religious in general. So he's just kind of there to, like, preach because they don't even know what he's preaching half the time. I feel like they don't know what to call him. They don't know what he's doing there. They're just like, Father, pastor, preacher, whatever, and he's like, okay. Whatever.
See, this would have been a good job for Elijah Gemstone, which is the name of the one from the 1860s. He would have fit in well there.
Yeah, it sounds like that's kind of what he's giving.
Yeah. All right. So Arthur is going to listen to Goodstab, and chapter 3 we hear Goodstab's story. It's called The Nachzehers Dark Gospel, March 31st, 1912. Did you look up what?
I did not. I'm just now.
I didn't either.
Great.
So we are not prepared.
We are not.
So in German folklore, a Nachzeher is a type of revenant, a creature believed to return from the grave to drain the life from the living. So basically it's the German word for vampire, pretty much.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
I just kind of noticed it.
Gospel.
I guess because they aren't really like chapter titles and chapter numbers. I just wasn't even really paying attention.
Right.
To the chat. So I guess I just now noticed that that's like a German word. Yeah. But okay.
So the Nachzehers Dark Gospel, March 31st, 1912. This is a long chapter. So get a pretty long story here of how Goodstab, along with some of his tribe, were checking out a caravan that was attacked, and it was made to seem that the Blackfeet were the attackers. It was, however, a setup by some white settlers. In this caravan, they find a cage with a man in it, and it's not an ordinary man. There seems to be something strange about him, and they end up calling him the Cat Man. After they're done doing their little investigation, they start pulling the Cat Man's wagon with him in it in the cage up the mountain to fulfill a prophecy, because the prophecy is that the white god, which is what they think this Cat Man is now, is supposed to.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what they're hoping he is, because they're scared of him.
Right.
So they're like, well, maybe he's the white god, and maybe we should take him up to the mountain, because then what is it? He like wipes away something.
Yeah, he kills the king or something.
Yeah.
Chief, I mean. So anyway, as they're pulling this wagon with the Cat Man in the back of the cage up this hill, they run into a small squad of American soldiers. And Goodstab and his tribe members pretty much get overran by these soldiers, but one of them, as he's dying, lets the Cat Man out of his cage. And the Cat Man then proceeds to just fuck everyone up.
Yes.
Because the Cat Man is basically a vampire.
Right.
So he bites Goodstab on the neck, and then a soldier fired a cannon at the Cat Man. So there's only one soldier left, but he fired this big cannon at the Cat Man, and it ended up cutting the Cat Man in half. And it's kind of uphill from where Goodstab is laying, dying, and the Catman's blood runs down and into Goodstab's mouth. And I thought this was a cool way to. So there's basically a trope with vampires of how to become a vampire. There's different ways. One of them is first, of course, you must be bitten by the vampire, but then you also have to drink the vampire's blood to become a vampire. So this is a cool way to get that to happen, I think.
Yeah, which I didn't.
It's not something that he did himself. Usually,
Yeah,
the way it's put out to be is that person that got bit has to want to drink from the vampire to become a vampire. But this is kind of just, it just happens. And there was no way he could do anything about it. It just happened because it ran into his mouth while he was laying there.
right. Which I never heard of the drinking the blood to become a vampire. I always just thought you got bit and that was it.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know that you had to drink their blood too.
That's
You don't.
one of the
You
tropes.
didn't
I mean,
have
there-
to
it
in the
depends.
world
It's all
of Twilight.
Yeah, it's all different. That's what I'm saying. It's all different. This is one of the tropes of
Sure.
how to become a vampire.
So yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm saying I didn't notice that because I didn't know that that was like a thing.
Yeah.
But that does make it much more interesting to me too, because yeah, you're right. Like, especially if it is kind of like they have to, in other versions, it's like they have to want to drink the blood and become a vampire.
Right.
Like that this was like forced upon him.
Right. He had no choice because he was laying there and it just went into his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, and I think again, we need to talk about the animals in this chapter. We have to talk
Yes,
about
well,
the
this chapter was so
beavers.
long and I didn't want to put every little thing in there. But yes, we do need to talk about the beavers.
We have to talk about the beavers. So I did some research on the beavers too, because I was like, wow, he's
Oh.
really like into these beavers.
So what did he do with the beavers? Let's just talk about that first, right? He was supposed to go find something.
No, so what was happening is that he didn't feel like man enough, and I guess because like I don't know, things were going on. He was feeling insecure in his masculinity. And so he went to go look for these beavers because you could trade a beaver pelt for a gun. So he was looking to go skin a beaver and trade it to get a new gun. And he's like, when I get a new gun, I'll be a new man, basically.
Right. So, but I thought he was sent that way to find something else. He just happened to come upon a beaver area, like a beaver dam.
Yeah, maybe he was.
He needed 10 beaver pelts to buy a gun. And there were 9 that were in the floor of that caravan. And he needed one more. And he was sent to go do something else. Because remember, he saw his stag there that it's like his spirit animal that was showing him the way to get what he came for. But instead, he saw the beavers and decided to get that last beaver pelt. And he made a bad decision.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember what he was sent to go get.
I don't remember what he was sent to go get either, damn it.
But
that's what happened, yeah.
But then he came across the beavers and he was like, okay, great. Like, I can get a beaver pelt and then I can be a man because I have a gun.
Right.
But according to their tradition, they're not supposed to mess with the beavers. In Pakuni, Blackfeet tradition and tribes, they have beaver medicine. They use beaver medicine. They have beaver bundles because the beaver is a very like sacred animal to them because of the work that they do and their persistence and how much they work and build and stuff. And there's a lot of like medicine that goes into that for them. And so it's a very sacred animal. And he knows he's not supposed to be doing this, but he does it anyway because he wants a gun. And that essentially, and he believes, kind of curses him, right? That was the wrong thing to do. And then his spirit animal does turn his back. He's like, I never see my stag again. Turns his back on him because he did wrong. It's not what he was supposed to do. And so then now he feels like the running theme throughout his story is this all happened because I killed the beaver to get a gun.
Right.
Which comes
That's why he's being punished as being a vampire.
Which comes back a little bit later in the next telling of his story. So so the beavers, man, big important thing. But yeah, they were especially out west, they were super, super sacred to a lot of different tribes. And I was trying to look up this like beaver medicine and the beaver bundles and stuff, but there's not a whole lot of recorded history on it. They're very like hush hush about it. And I tried to watch a video, but I couldn't understand what they were saying because they were speaking mostly in their own language and there weren't subtitles. So I was trying to like figure out like why and what it was. But apparently they do it twice a year. They have like a ceremony where they open up the beaver bundle. It's just supposed to give them strength in a way, I think, because the beavers are so strong and persistent and building. But yeah, so the beavers.
There used to be a rumor that vanilla extract was made from some gland of the beaver's butt.
I feel like that's not.
It's not true though.
Artificial vanilla is.
It's not true. It's not. It's not true in modern food production.
Maybe
but the myth arises from castoreum. It's a secretion from beavers' castor glands, which has a vanilla-like scent. It was historically used as a flavoring agent, but it's now largely been replaced by synthetic vanilla flavoring.
Well, right. I was going to say, though, I'm pretty sure they've used it in like perfumes and stuff, too.
Possibly.
I work for a perfume place. We don't use that because they're vegetarian, but that's definitely a thing. Get animal musk still from animals, and you get it from their behinds a lot of the time. So but yeah, no, I don't think that's not why they thought the beavers were sacred, because they smelled like vanilla. But yes, so the beavers. So again, we're keeping prairie dogs in mind, and we are keeping beavers in mind as well.
All right, moving on to chapter 4. This is another chapter mostly about Arthur. So it's the absolution of 3 persons is the name of the chapter. April 3rd, 1912. Another body has been found, and Arthur is asked to go when they go to retrieve it, when the townsmen go to retrieve it with the sheriff. Arthur's having doubts about Goodstab's story and trying to find flaws in it. So, he's kind of questioning all the different things that he told him about. Like, one of the things that he didn't talk about was Goodstab took 2 brass buttons off one of the uniforms of the soldiers. And so Arthur's like questioning why there would be soldiers there at that time, like such a small unit of soldiers by themselves, etc. Anyway, the sheriff, he's got a dog with him when they go to retrieve this body. And he has the dog eat a piece of the dead man, which at first I thought was really friggin' weird.
I did too.
Because I didn't know why he was doing that, but we do find out later.
Yeah, so Arthur, I didn't know that was a practice, though. I had no idea. So when it was happening, I was like, why are they letting that dog eat that guy's ass?
Yeah, because that's what he did. The sheriff took some bacon grease and slapped it on the dead guy's butt, and then had the dog
just take a bite. Down. It was like horrifyingly described too. I was like, this is too much detail. But then it comes back. I guess I had no idea that they did that back in the day. That was crazy.
Yeah, but we'll get to that here in the next chapter. So Arthur gets around to looking at, so when Arthur gets back to the church after they've gone out, looked at this dead man. So it's another dead man that's been drained of blood and has been skinned. He gets back to the church and he looks in the collection plate from the last sermon and he finds those 2 brass buttons stuck through by a porcupine quill. So these are those 2 brass buttons that Goodstab was talking about. He took off those soldiers.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of the author here is trying to have Arthur believe, maybe make it a little more believable.
Well, yeah,
the story that Goodstab is telling him.
I think, and I think it's Goodstab trying to make him aware of like, hey, I'm telling you a true story. Like, watch your back. I think it's kind of like a scary thing, like believe what I'm saying. Yeah, I think also we got to talk about Arthur's gluttony. He keeps talking about this cake.
Right.
And he's like, there's cake on the diary. Like, I've been eating this cake. I was only going to have 1 slice after lunch and then 1 slice after dinner. But if the whole cake goes missing by the end of the night, oh, well.
Hey, I'm on Arthur's side.
What is this about? Well, it's interesting, too, because then in the second chapter, when Goodstab does show up, Arthur's thinking to himself, he's like, I hope he's not asking for a meal because I don't want to share my food with him. Right. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He's like, I hope this guy's not hungry because and then he was like, and I mean, like, I would have, obviously, because I'm only gluttonous in private, but like, I'm glad he didn't ask me for food. So I don't really know. I'm still kind of like, okay, this has to mean something. This has to something about his character or something might happen from it. I just feel like there's a lot of talking about him eating and being gluttonous and stuff. So I feel like that's got to tie in somewhere. Do you think anything about his gluttony right now?
Yeah, I mean, it possibly could because obviously gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins, right? So it could have some connotation later on. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, which I mean, I guess just like feeding in general,
Right,
vampire.
because the vampire feed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
that makes
trying
sense.
to like tie them together in some kind of way. I think also his character, just because he's like a man of God, doesn't mean he's a good guy. I
Right.
think that's also kind of what it is like give him these like bad traits to make him not seem like a good guy. And there's this
Yeah.
like nasty and like this nasty gluttonous. He's like, I think it had like butter and bacon grease in it, and this cake is just the best cake I've ever had. I'm like, okay, enough about the fucking cake. um, so yeah, so I just wanted to point that out because I feel like that's definitely some kind of theme happening here.
All right. So moving on to chapter 5. This one doesn't even have a title. It's just April 7th, 1912. And it starts out with the dog has died. So the whole point was that to have the dog eat the man was to see what happens to the dog. And the dog died. So now they think that it's poison that's killing these people. And apparently the sheriff's dog on the man they found before this last one, he also had his own dog take a bite and ended up dying as well. So now they think it's poison. And for some reason, they call these bodies that they find a hump, which I'm not sure why that is, and I didn't look it up or anything.
Yeah, I don't know either. And then like because Goodstab calls a bear a hump later on in the next chapter too. So I don't know what hump. I don't know if we missed that or
Yeah,
if it is something else. But yeah, I don't either. I don't understand that either.
we can do a live lookup,
Oh,
see what we can find.
live lookup, everybody. It's hard to find some of these like terms and stuff with the
So
Native
there's a
Americans
thing
because they're
called
so watching
a thing
right
called
now,
a buffalo hump, but
right?
that is a prominent nickname for several Native American leaders, it says, including
Oh,
a significant leader of the Comanche. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then in the Sioux, there's a hump of the Cheyenne River, which was a figure in the ghost dance movement. So yeah, I'm not really sure what they mean by calling that a hump. Maybe it has something to do with, because this says buffalo hump, maybe it's something to do with like a dead buffalo, because they usually skin the buffalo and take the meat from it, like the Native Americans did anyway. Of course, the Americans just killed all the buffalo so they can kill off the Native Americans.
And
But
skin the
that's
buffalo,
another. Yeah, they skin it, but don't take the meat. And
right?
so, yeah, that's a whole nother story that we won't get into right now.
Well, there's just some foreshadowing here.
Yeah. All right. So one other thing we find out, this is actually a shorter chapter than most. We also find out that Arthur served in the American Civil War.
Which I missed that. I don't know how. Was
Well,
he?
it wasn't really, the Civil War itself wasn't mentioned. It just says that he served in the war.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only war at that
It would've
time,
been,
because
right.
it said he was born in 1839,
Right.
which would have made him around the age of what, 18, 19, 20,
Right.
in the 1860s, early 1860, which would be prime draft material for the Civil War.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Well, do we think what side was he on? What do we think?
Yeah, I don't know. I
It
was
doesn't
wondering
say.
that myself,
Yeah.
and it doesn't say.
Yeah. Especially because he's out west.
Right.
So it really could have been.
Because he could have been either side, you know.
Yeah. Because we don't know where he's from, do we?
Originally, no, I don't think we do.
Because he
He's
hasn't
in
always.
Montana
Right. They're in
now,
Montana right
it
now, but he
doesn't mean
hasn't
he's from
always
there.
been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in the Civil War. If he was in the Civil War, like, I don't think
Right.
he probably went from Montana to go fight in either
Yeah.
side.
Probably not.
So yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, maybe we find out later on. Who knows? We'll see.
I mean, I have my theories. But who's to say?
All right. Chapter 6. I numbered the chapters myself. The Nak Zeher's Dark Gospel chapter, April 7th, 1912. So this is going to be another Good Stab story, confession. So he tells the story of when he was a boy and how he got the name Good Stab, which he did so because a soldier got behind him and was holding him while the rest of his little tribe that he was with at the time was out, I guess, fighting some other soldiers. I can't remember. But this one got behind him and he ended up taking an arrow and stabbing the guy in the eye. And so his name is Good Stab now.
Yeah. And then they found him trying to scalp him.
Yeah.
They were like,
right.
way to go, son.
Yeah, you get to eat some buffalo tongue.
Yeah. Like, you're a man now.
Yeah.
Which was very important for him. I mean, that's very important in their tribe, you know? That was like a really significant moment for him, getting that name and doing that heroic action and getting the approval from the tribe and his father. He's got a lot of daddy issues, this vampire does.
Yeah. So basically, Good Stab died and then he came back to life as a vampire. So after waking up, he goes after that lone soldier that was left after that skirmish they had. He ends up killing that soldier. He drinks the blood of the soldier and he says he could tell that this was his real meat, quote unquote. Now, Good Stab talks about feeding on animals, but it is changing the way he looks. And he realizes that the Catman had an extended jaw because the caravan was feeding him mice, and the Catman looked a bit like a mouse. So some of the other things he finds out during this time, which I didn't put here in the timeline, sorry, outline, is that he can't eat anything else. If he tries to eat anything, he automatically throws it up. The only thing he can do is drink blood, which is a normal vampire trope.
Yeah, because he can't even like eat the marrow out of them.
Yeah, he tried eating the marrow out of the bone of one, which has some blood in it, it says, but he ended up throwing that up as well.
Came back up, yeah. And then also like the blood, he can get over full with blood. There's times where he has to like stab himself so the blood will come out.
Right.
Because he's like has like a tick, like blown up from the blood, has to like settle.
Yeah. So, and he's been drinking the blood of a bunch of different animals. One of them was a bear. So he went into a bear cave and was kind of just feeding off the bear as the bear hibernated, but he didn't feed so much as to kill the bear.
Yeah, he just had it in he was like, he didn't swallow any of the blood though, he said. He just let the blood like coat his mouth. And then he was having the same dreams as the bear was having.
Mm.
Yeah, he was like dreaming of like berry bushes because the bear was dreaming. Because he says he like tried to go to sleep and he didn't have any dreams, which was like not you know, he didn't like that because his dreams are very important in his tribe and like his culture.
Right, his culture, yeah.
So he liked being able to like get the dreams of the bear. So he like learned how to do that. Because before that too, he like tries to kill himself and he can't.
Right.
And I think his spirit animal comes back to him when he tries to do that, right?
Yeah, the spirit animal did come back at one point. I can't remember if it was that part or not.
And he's like, you know, because he knew he cursed himself.
Yeah, because of the beavers.
Can't kill him. Right. Well, the bear attacks him and he's like letting the bear attack him because, you know, he's like, yes, just
kill me.
Be a bear, you know?
Yeah.
And he throws him down by the beavers. And he's like, oh, of course, the bear knew.
Right. I remember that part now, yeah.
Like the bear knew that I did this to myself because the bear like threw him down to where the beavers were. And then he also, because he does that, that's when he starts feeding on the animals. And he goes back to where everybody died. And he like does a little memorial for them. And then he decides he's never going to go back there again. And then he goes back to the beavers and he tries to help the beavers out. Like he tries to like and stuff. But then the beavers don't touch anything.
They won't take anything he's trying to give them. Yeah.
And he's like,
because he's tainted.
And he's like, as they shouldn't. He's like, of course not. Why would they?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah,
and none of the animal, like if he leaves he's leaving the meat of the animal because all he's doing is draining the blood, and no animals will come and eat that animal that he killed either,
and
because it's all tainted.
Right, and he also alludes to, because you know, based on their tribe and their culture, how the animals there are all like spirits anyway, like they're all spiritual beings. So he like being out there with the animals, he's like, they know who I am, they know what I do, they know everything. of course, it's a Native American story, so there's going to be lots of ties to spiritual and the land and the animals and stuff. So so nothing's going to eat anything that he touches because he's cursed.
Yeah.
He's a vampire.
Yep. And eventually he finds a person, a man that he can feed off of, and he does so. And when he does, he sees that it's a Pikuni boy.
Well, wait, because before that, he's feeding off of the trappers.
Oh, yeah, the trappers. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, because then once he realizes that if he keeps drinking animal blood, he's going to turn into animals, which I thought was really cool. I was like, that's what I would do. I would drink animal blood and turn into an animal. I wouldn't want to be a person cursed like this. But that's just me.
But he'd still be a vampire, and cursed is just he would look like an animal.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
he started growing horns at one point.
Right. I'm like, why not? I was like, I would become a fish so I could go swim and just be a fish. That sounds nice. But anyway, so once he realizes that he has to drink human blood in order to stay human looking, he starts attacking just trappers because he doesn't want to be this, right? So he's trying to go after people who he thinks are bad. So that's why he goes after the trappers, because they're killing these animals, these sacred animals, to him for no reason or for not good reasons. Then nobody comes by maybe for like a few weeks, for like 3 weeks. And then that's when he's like, deranged because he's so blood-starved.
So hungry. Yeah. And he ends up draining a Pikuni boy, and it was a boy that he knew from his tribe. Yeah. So now he's feeling really guilty.
Yeah. That was sad.
Yeah, he feels really guilty and he runs off and he ends up coming upon a herd of dead buffalo, and they've all been shot and skinned, but the meat was not taken. And then he is shot by someone from far away, and that's where the chapter ends. And of course, my theory on this is it's American soldiers killing these buffaloes and skinning them, because that was what they did back then. They were trying to kill off the buffaloes in order to take away the food for the Indians, the Native Americans, because they wanted to get rid of the Native Americans.
Right. So that's kind of, I think, probably his villain origin story right there. Because he decides he's going to leave the backbone, which was like their territory, what they called it, and very spiritual to them, because he's trying to run away from who he's become and all the bad things that he's done. But then he comes across the buffalo, and that's probably where he's like, no, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to kill buffalo hunters.
Right, which is where we get the title. Buffalo Hunter, because he's the Buffalo Hunter.
Right, exactly. Because he's a vigilante vampire. Which is really cool. I think that's really cool. Because at first when I started this book, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this.
That bad.
It's just a lot of No, it wasn't bad. It's just like so much detail. Sometimes the too descriptive ones, and then they're just very, very, very descriptive. And sometimes I get a little lost in those kinds of books. And it was just a lot of like telling his backstory and stuff at first.
Yeah.
But then once we got to like him becoming what he is, I was like, oh, okay, this is fucking cool. Because then I liked that he had already I like that he's very conflicted about it, and like he's like he didn't want to like eat people, but then he had to, and so instead of going into town and just killing people, he's like gonna just do the bad guys, and then having to learn like how to do that. It's kind of giving Dexter, right? Serial killers.
Oh yeah,
serial
killers.
Right. Yeah, like if I have to be this way, at least let me do some good from it,
And that just reminded me of a book I read a long time ago. I'm going to look up the name. Vampire of the Mists. So this was a Forgotten Realms book by Christie Golden. I think I read this in like 1990. But it's also about a vampire who doesn't really like that he's a vampire, and he was feeding off animals at first and stuff. But this is also a Ravenloft book. And he goes into Ravenloft, which is where Curse of Strahd is. But that's all. Who's a very big vampire in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that's also a thing in Twilight. They just eat animals so that they don't have to kill people. But then there was one point where like Edward like rebelled, and he just went and he like would only drink the blood of rapists, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, there you go. Vampires not wanting to be vampires, but trying to do it trying to do something good from it. So yeah, so no, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. His vigilante.
Yeah, because I think now that we've got all the big backstory and the origin story,
yeah,
it should take off from here. So that was a good stopping point.
it was a perfect stopping point. And I like too when he ends, he's always like, "That's the end of my pipe," right?
All right.
Pipe while he's telling the story, and then once the pipe ends, that's just where he stops for the day.
Right.
Like,
So that goes back to the
that's cool.
the peace pipe.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Thanks so much for hanging out with us as we tackled the first 120 pages of Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Next week, we'll be off again, then return on May 16th, when we'll be jumping into pages 121 through 232. So make sure you're caught up and ready to get back into the madness with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you loving? What's creeping you out? And what theories do you have? You can find us and join the conversation on Discord, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky. All the links are in the show notes. Until next time, happy reading.
Our intro music is Upbeat Funk, performed by Mikhail Smusev, and our outro music is Lo-Fi Chill, medium version, performed by Bodan Kuzman. You can find both tracks on Pixabay.com. Thanks for joining us, family, and we'll see you next week.